We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with Scott DeCosenza, Legal Eagle at Liberty Nation, discussing the classified documents debacle of President Joe Biden. In the first part, we discussed the legality of a then Vice President Joe Biden, declassifying documents. But now, Scott, I'd like to move on to what position the Justice Department is in, the DOJ, under Merrick Garland, because it seems to me, and I did mention this earlier, that Biden and the administration have really created a rod for their own back with this by so vociferously condemning Donald Trump and the Mar-a-Lago documents. They could certainly do no less than apply a full investigation to the documents found at the Penn Biden Center, could they not?
Is that a trick question?
It is a trick question, Scott, because I think you know where this is going. And it rhymes with bibocracy.
The decision to investigate and prosecute is a political one. That's why Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, is a political appointee. And it's the Biden-Garland Justice Department. And they will investigate and do as they please. Or if, Mark, they decided that the matter was so important that it had to be removed from politics, they could appoint an independent counsel to go ahead and go after it.
Like they've done with Donald Trump and Mr. Jack Smith, correct?
That's right. The pit bull, as he's referred to, absolutely. But
this is the pit bull that was censured by the Supreme Court for his bias in trying to bring down his enemies. Is that the same?
But it's just fair to send him after Donald Trump. So the game is the game. But the matter with the Biden documents certainly does not rise to that level of import, and we know that because Merrick Garland did not appoint an independent counsel to investigate. Instead, he farmed it out to a regular member of the Justice Department, a U.S. attorney
of Illinois. Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So obviously,
interestingly enough, that person is a Trump appointee to the office, and there's only a couple that were holdovers. So what happens usually is when a new president of a new party comes in, shortly thereafter his swearing in, the U.S. attorneys will offer their resignation, and as new U.S. attorneys are appointed, they'll leave their offices. So I think it does bear mentioning that he is a Trump appointee.
Yeah, I believe in this particular instance, the gentleman in question, I forget his name off the top of my head, he was actually lobbied to stay on because he was a unanimous Senate confirmation, but he was involved in an ongoing investigation. So rather than new broom sweeps clean, as it were, he was just kind of left in place to continue what he was working on at the time. Now, do we have a time frame on the gentleman in question from Illinois' investigation?
Mark, I think we'll get a resolution by this. I think we should expect a report in December of 2024. I think that's enough time to get all the facts in and read the law and come up with a...
I wonder what could be happening around that date. And by that same logic, Scott, do you expect a full report on Donald Trump and his issues around October 2024?
I think that depends on whether he declares for, whether his presidential campaign becomes more serious or not. And the answer is yes if yes, and no no, right?
All right. So I think something I want to discuss here, Scott, and I think it's really quite important, is that we're seeing so many arguments from the media. And of course, I know that law does not get decided within the annals of the Fourth Estate, but public opinion does. And that can obviously be a very powerful factor. And what we're seeing from let's be fair, let's call them the Biden-friendly legacy media, they're saying that it's all apples and oranges, and what Trump did was immeasurably worse. We have graphics courteously provided by, not to us, of course, but just to the general public, of the differences between Biden and Trump. And we've also had the View host saying that, well, we know that Trump is a liar, and therefore we don't trust him when he says what he says, but we believe that Joe Biden is an honest man. I'm paraphrasing here of Joy Behar.
Certainly.
So therefore, we give him the benefit of the doubt.
First thing I get up, what I do is look and see, if she's enlighten the nation anymore about how we should feel about matters of national import. So I get it.
She is, of course, the Jim Cramer of the political world in terms of if she says buy, time to sell. So this is being argued in the papers, and they're saying it's apples and oranges, Scott. And I just don't see that it's apples and oranges. Is it apples and oranges or not, in your opinion?
Unlike so many other commentators, I would like to see or learn more about the documents that were actually recovered before I answer the question.
According to these same legacy media outlets, and this is unconfirmed, of course, at this time, but according to legacy media outlets, I don't need to name them, there are the alphabet ones, they're saying that it's documents related to Ukraine and the UK. And just
there
those
you
other
go again, Mark, with that old trope about Biden and Ukraine. These charges have been investigated and dismissed. Everybody knows that there's nothing there.
Yes, by Joy Behar.
Yeah, it's too delicious, right?
Joy Reid.
When you hear that, like, the one thing that would make it just an electrified story is that they concern Ukraine, Burisma, or some other thing that involves the private payments to the Biden family. So obviously that would make it far worse than some love letter from Kim Jong-il or Un to Donald Trump, right? That's which has been alleged that Trump had in the Mar-a-Lago.
Yes, but as you pointed out earlier, following up on this is always going to be a political decision. Now, let's just talk very, very briefly for me about the Penn Biden Center. What is that? Because it's a think tank in Washington, D.C.
Well, it's not a think tank. No. So right
it's a
away,
drool tank, is what I'm hearing online.
This is a device that was created in order to house potential Biden administration officials, which is what it did. And the reporting reflects that it's by and large, sort of vacant at this point because of so many people leaving to go to the Biden administration, which is what it was, sort of created for, that to give him some sort of gravitas, for lack of a better word, so he didn't just,
so essentially
it's somebody sitting in his basement.
Which is pretty much what he did for the campaign. So it's pretty much a clearinghouse for Biden cohorts. I mean, we know that Antony Blinken also had an association in there, right?
Yes, and also, Mark, if I were a cynic, I would say that also it was a giant payoff for Biden directing massive funds, research funds and others, to the University of Pennsylvania. I think it's a truly sad day for Quaker history. It was a fine institution at one point, and it seems to have succumbed to these political games.
Well, I'm sure it's not that political, because it's not as though it received tens of millions of dollars from China. Oh, I believe they actually did receive tens of millions of dollars from China, but I'm sure that'll be a story that will never see the light of the daily broadsheet. Scott DeCosenza, thanks ever so much for being with us here today, and we will be following this closely on the page of libertynation.com.
Thanks, Mark.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.